Hi guys, Squirrel here and welcome to a very exciting video where you're going to see my brand new PC being built and custom water cooled. Now on my right here, this is my current machine. It's a 2.5-year-old machine, Intel 6950X and a 1080 Ti graphics card. It's been a great little workhorse. This one was also custom water cooled. But it's time to replace it with something a bit more cutting edge. Now, building this machine, there's going to be some people helping me. We've got Andy from etechnics.com. He's going to be building the actual PC from its components. We've got Dave from AlphaCool. He's going to be designing and building the custom water cooling that goes inside the rig. But what is custom water cooling anyway? Well, briefly, custom water cooling means instead of relying on fans and radiators and that kind of thing built onto the CPU or built onto the graphics card, you basically replace all of it with a tank full of liquid and a pump that circulates the liquid through the components. It's basically a closed loop. It goes to the graphics card, goes to the CPU, goes to the radiators, which are in the case here, and then returns to the tank. It's an elegant solution. It's quite quiet, which is what I need, and it looks rather cool. During the build, we'll talk about the various components I used and why I chose them, including why after 15 years I changed from Intel to AMD, and why I want the brand new RTX support that's available in the latest NVIDIA graphics cards. Now maybe you'll learn a thing or two on the way. If not, I'm sure you'll have a lot of fun, so let's get started. Let's talk about the requirements that I have for my new PC. Well, my current PC was designed purely for gaming. This is designed to sit alongside another machine which handle all the encoding for streaming. What I want to do is get rid of both of these machines and have one machine that does everything. It's got to record, game, stream, encode, and be a general workhorse for my day-to-day activities. I also want it to be future-proofed, so I want to have PCIe 4.0 support, and I want the whole thing to be RTX enabled, because when these games come in with the RTX support, I want to be able to take advantage of that. Because I'm a streamer and recorder, I need my machine to be quiet. It's no good trying to record a video if you've got fans blasting away out of your PC. It must perform quietly. I want quick loading times. I don't want to be around waiting for my applications and games to start up. So this machine has a hard drive, it has 2 SSDs and a small NVMe for the operating system. My new machine, I want NVMe's and SSDs only because I need to have minimum loading times for all the applications. Finally, I want it to look cool, so I want a nice case and I want Aura Sync support so I can configure all the RGB lighting inside the case to go with my peripherals. So for the case, I went for the Lian Li 011 XL. It's an ROG certified case, which means it works perfectly with Aura Sync. It looks so nice. It has 2 glass panels, one on the front and one on the side. It's won so many awards, it's quiet, plenty of space inside, and it's great for water cooling. Now for the motherboard, I went for the Zeus ROG Crosshair 8 Formula. It's a cracking motherboard. It has so many features on it, including 2 NVMe slots. It's a Ryzen 3000 motherboard, and it's got PCI 4.0 built into it. I've used the Zeus motherboards for at least 10 years, and they've never let me down. Now for the CPU, why did I change from Intel to AMD? Well, PCIe 4 is one of those big things, and with Ryzen, the 3000 series, I think they're knocking it out of the park. So I decided to go for the 3950X, which is a 16-core processor. It's an absolute beast of a CPU. I'm looking forward to trying it. It's a big change from Intel, but I think it's the right move. Now with PCIe 4.0, we can get some blistering speeds out of the NVMe drives. So the 2 slots are going to be used with PCIe 4.0 compatible drives. Funnily enough, not many manufacturers are making those yet, but Corsair do. They make the MP600. With 2 2TB drives in there, I can have one for the operating system and applications, and the other one dedicated to games. And that means almost all of the main things that I'm going to use day to day will load very, very quickly. With Ryzen, memory is very important. You need to get the right timings, otherwise you'll slow down the Ryzen chip, it's going that quick. I went for some G-Skill Trident Z RGB. It's a DDR4 3600 MHz chip, but more importantly it has CL16 timings. It actually looks really, really cool. It's not cheap RAM, but it's very, very good RAM and perfectly suited to Ryzen. With the memory and NVMe drives mounted, before putting the motherboard into the case, Dave fixed the AlphaCool CPU cooling block over the shiny new Ryzen CPU. Andy then mounted the motherboard into the case, ready for the rest of the components. Now you might be asking yourself, well, if you went for an AMD CPU, why not go for an AMD graphics card? Fact is, I love Nvidia graphics cards. I've had them for almost 20 years and I found them to be superb. The drivers are great, I love the GeForce setup, and they've also got cutting edge stuff like RTX. So for the graphics card, I went for an Asus ROG Strix Nvidia 2080 Ti overclocked. This is a monster of a card. 11 gig of VRAM on board, 4 ports, 2 display ports, 2 HDMIs, RTX support, and a built-in encoder chip which is perfect for streaming and recording, which is what I do. Now to power all this equipment in the PC, we're going to need a good power supply. I've gone for the ROG Thor 1200 watt. This is a power supply that not only looks good, but it actually runs fanless up to 70% of its power. So that means everything up to about 800 watt delivery, it will be completely silent. On the top, it actually has a little LED display which tells you what it's doing, so you can see how much power is being drawn. Finally, it's modular, so you only put the cables in that you need in your PC build. Okay, so why water cooling and why AlphaCool? Well, I know a guy called Dave. He's a good friend of mine and he works at AlphaCool. And Dave built this PC. He's really good at it. He's really good at water cooling, in fact. AlphaCool makes some really nice water cooling components. The blocks they use fit on your CPU and your graphics card. They make the pumps, they make the piping, they make the joints, and they all perform really well and look good. And laying out pipes like this to look that tidy takes a lot of pain. You're going to see Dave pulling his beard out as he tries to bend pipes and shape them to fit exactly and precisely and make the job look good. He's a bit of a perfectionist at heart. With water cooling, you can use flexible or hard tubing to connect the radiators and cooling blocks. Aesthetically, I prefer hard tubing, but it does require you to cut and shape each piece of the water cooling loop precisely. This requires some specialist tools, experience, and a lot of patience. In this PC, we want low noise levels. The best way to achieve this is to use large radiators and lots of quiet noctua fans running at a low RPM. In total, Dave mounted 3 radiators, one at the top, one at the back, and one at the bottom. Air is drawn in from the bottom and pushed out through the top and back. Dave mounted the pump to the bottom of the tank so that liquid is drawn down and pumped around the loop. Each section of tubing in the loop has to be cut and shaved so that the tube fits flush with the connectors. This ensures there are no gaps where liquid could leak out under pressure. For a tidy build, planning is key, and every PC is different. Dave has to see all the components together before figuring out how to structure the loop.
I'm just trying to figure out how I can do it neatly, neat and tidy. Oh, it's going up there, isn't it? I remember now. I remember why I had it like this. It's going up to there. I remember. So we go from here, this radiator, into here, from here over to here, from here up to here. That goes from here into this radiator, and that radiator into the reservoir, and into the out the reservoir into here. So that's the loop. I knew I had it in my head somewhere. It was just hiding amongst all of the other guff.
With the layout planned, Dave is ready to create the rest of the tubing for the build. Each section has to be cut and bent to shape. Because we're using hard tubing, bending involves first heating it with a blowtorch. To stop the tube losing its shape, a silicone insert is used which is very heat resistant. Bending tube is not a particularly difficult thing to do, but getting it right requires time and practice. Dave chose to employ sharp, simple bends so that the final look is dynamic but not busy. The sections of tubing meet the cooling blocks and radiators using fittings. Fittings are essentially an O-ring compression joint. They come in a variety of shapes, sizes and angles. from 45 to 90 degrees, from fixed rotation to adjustable, which allows Dave to direct the tube sections around the PC, securing them in tight spaces and difficult angles. Most sections required several iterations to meet Dave's high standards, and completing the loop took almost a full working day. It not only has to function well, but it has to be a pleasing and balanced composition. Oh, nice. Yeah, that works.
I actually quite like the loop now. Now it's actually from quite far back.
There's some kind of symmetry to it.
Yeah, it goes a bit...
Obviously the main focus that we always said was always going to be that area because of the RGB, and that's probably the most open area of the whole loop.
And here, which is where we need to add things.
Yeah.
So it makes sense.
Yeah, because once the things are in there, that's going to look like you've sort of done it on purpose to have that. So we can say that in the video.
Yeah, it's not. It's not bad design. We intentionally did it. It's not a bug. It's a feature.
For SSDs, I'm going to go for Samsung drives. I've used them for years and they've never let me down. So two 4TB SSDs will sit in the back of the PC and they'll have all my kind of video footage and recordings and streams and backups and that kind of thing. Now, something that's often overlooked, but I think is necessary, is cable management. It's far too easy when you build a PC to just get it all working, put the lid back on and leave it. But I like to cable manage, so you'll see the guys routing cables, cable tying everything up nice and neatly so that when you open the lid, it just looks like peace and tranquility. When you're water cooling a PC, before you put the liquid in, you can pressure test it to make sure there are no leaks. Dave didn't have a pressure testing kit to hand, so what he did was put the liquid in and looked for any small leaks which appear in the system. And sure enough, using a bit of blue paper, he found a couple of small leaks, tightened up the joints, and everything was watertight and good to go. We then took the PC, put it in its box, put it in the back of the car, and drove home after 2 very long days of building and filming. And here it is, guys. Look at this. What an absolute beast this is. It looks so good. I am super happy with what they've done, the way they've built it, the way it's been water cooled, the specs, everything about this machine is fantastic. I've set it up with the AuraSync lighting, so the CPU, the graphics card, memory, mouse, keyboard, all coordinated in terms of RGB lighting. I've put 2 of my capture cards down the bottom there. They take the feeds from the Sony cameras when I'm live streaming. In terms of the water cooling, we went for a transparent liquid, so it's like a plant-based extract or something, and it basically just keeps the system cool. It is super, super quiet. When it's working, the fans lift a little bit, but honestly, for recording and streaming, it's perfect. Performance, as you would expect, it knocks everything out the park. I've recorded, streamed on it, gamed on it for the last few weeks, and it takes everything in its stride. I think the guys have done an amazing job, and I am very, very happy with this. Now, if you want to dive into more detail and look at all the detailed specs of this build, I'll leave a link in the video description that will take you to a page where you can view all the components that were used. Guys, the PC is finally here, but this is months in the planning. I need to say some thank yous. A lot of people were involved in this project. Firstly, Azus. Azus are a channel sponsor of mine, as you know. They've provided a lot of this kit and coordinated the whole project. NVIDIA for the graphics card, RTX enabled, that is a monster. Dave from AlphaCool, you've seen his work. If you're thinking of water cooling, definitely check out AlphaCool. They make some great components in a water cooling build. Andy from eTechnics.com, he's the guy who put the machine together, you saw that, he does some great builds. And finally to you guys for watching and supporting the channel. That's it from me. I hope you enjoyed the video, I hope you learned something and found it entertaining. Me, I'm going to put this back on the floor and get gaming and recording. Take care guys, happy gaming.